Welcome back in, everyone, to another edition of the 70 Chipcast. No, that screen is not a lie. This is from an official Washington Commanders social media post. It was the most recent mock draft that they had posted up on Instagram, and someone just happened to notice, oh, that's different at the top of the screen there. And I don't think that they post this if it's not already in the works or if it's not already their official logo, they just haven't announced it yet, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about this. We're going to talk about free agent wide receivers. We talked about the prospects a couple weeks ago. Make sure you check out that video. While you're here, go ahead and hit subscribe on the channel. We'd really appreciate that. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of this logo. Let us know your thoughts. We're about to give you ours here in a minute. Before we dive into that, Ben, how are we doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Really looking forward to everything we're talking about tonight. Logos, mock draft, wide receiver, free agents. We are loaded tonight. Looking to help the Commanders get better and better, and we are loaded. So excited to be here.
All right. So, Ben, your first impressions of this logo.
Hey, okay, so when you first sent it to me, no context, I didn't even realize that it was the team that had sent this out at some point. I said, "Hey, it looks awesome." I thought you were putting together a new background logo yourself for a background screen,
Yeah.
and as that, I do think it's awesome. All right, I think it's totally legit. But as the official team logo, I this is not what I want. All right, it's still too generic and it still doesn't have any inspiring flavors to it. And for a team logo that's going to be used hopefully for the next 30 to 75 years, I would like something more inspiring than this because this is still in the generic category. So that's really my first impulse upon seeing it and then upon learning what it was.
So teams do modify logos rather frequently in the grand scheme of branding and so forth. So it would be at the least the next 5 years, if not 10 years. And look, this is not going to be the logo that's on the helmet. I would not imagine that this would be, I mean, that would just look really ugly on the helmet. Okay, I would hope they would go back to the spear logo on the helmet, maybe without the feather, although I would really prefer the feather on there. But obviously they're not going to do that for obvious reasons. Um, this would be cool at like the 50-yard line, on t-shirts, on sweatshirts, on hats. Um, it'd be cool for that. It's not my favorite because they're and again based on uh those like media day photo shoots with the players and all that where they had that kind of like Roman gladiator type like set with it, this is just kind of harkening back to that. And if that's the theme going forward, I don't really know how that connects to DC necessarily. And the ownership group has been really focused on, keeping everything local, like the Washington DC being kind of the brand of the team. And I don't really know how this ties back into that, how you can tie that big into that. Um, it seems like they're just trying to make the best of a bad situation, which is, better than just ignoring the problem. I prefer this as opposed to that stupid W that's on the helmet. But it's not what I don't think anyone wants this, right? Um, we'll take it. It's an improvement, but I would say it's a marginal improvement. Um, I just don't like the whole like gladiator Roman Empire type of theme to that again because I don't know how it ties back into DC and they're all about DC. That's fine. However, I'll be fine with it if we can get something like this. If we can get something like this, right, then I'm okay with it, right? Because you got the you got the old helmet here. This is a concept, by the way, from at Skins Draft on Instagram. This is a concept that was made by him. Uh, it looks like the old helmet just without the old logo. It has a rendition of the spear logo, just without the feather here, and it has the more modern contemporary colors as opposed to the ones that were these were the throwbacks during our 70th anniversary season. Um, from way back when they played in the 60s and 70s, the George Allen teams and so forth. When they had these color jerseys, pants, and uh, that era there. Sorry, the spear. So I prefer this color scheme definitely compared to this one. Um, but yeah, if we can get this helmet with the throwback uniforms that we played in last year, I'll take the logo that no one really wants, but it's an upgrade. I'll take that if this is the end game.
I have a lot of thoughts. I've already shared a bunch of them. I'll be brief. To me, any color scheme from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s is better than any color scheme we've had over the past 5 to 8 years. So I'll take any of those. I like the 80s color scheme the best. I prefer any of these logos that I'm seeing right here on our current screen over that dumb W that somebody stuck on a helmet the past few seasons. And I really wish they would get that W out of whatever logo that is supposed to be that you introduced us to at the start of tonight's show. Just get rid of the W. We do not need that. If you must have a W, then give it a much better font or whatever than that is. Let's get away from that. Having said that, as far as the Roman design, you know, I really wish they wouldn't move on, but I'd much prefer the Roman designs. At least it has some flavor and some direction versus the generic nothingness that we have seen out of the Commanders the past few years. So I will gladly, if we can't get something closer to what our history has put out, I will gladly take the Roman direction. But I'm with you. I like this. And I will say as well, it's been kind of odd. The way the team has rolled this out, just kind of teasing us here and there, that's really not normal for pro franchises to do. But they're kind of soft launching this stuff. They're market testing without telling us. And they're seeing what the response will be. And if the response is overwhelmingly negative, then they're just going to go back to the drawing board and switch it up a little bit until they get something that's more or less acceptable. It is a shame. At least the design you showed us at the start and what we're seeing right here, this is better than some of the generic crap that has been coming down the pipeline the past 10 or 20 years with new franchise names. And I realize not every name can be inspiring, but still, some of it, the Guardians over in Cleveland, hey, give me a break. You could have come up with something better than Guardians. If we had to switch off the Indian logo, you could have come up with something better. Come up with the Rock and Rollers. You got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame sitting right there. Come up with something more based on that. We didn't even do that. We just
Yeah.
went with Guardians.
Yeah.
So that's my generic thoughts on that one.
I mean, if we did change the name to Commanders, it would be to Guardians or it would be to Gladiators or something like that, trying to stick with, the theme, or probably the Washington Empire would probably not sound great given the state of things right now. So it would just not it, they're basically sticking with the name. And I'm not a fan of that, right? Obviously we've kind of beat this, dead horse to death again and again and again and again. We've double tapped it, we ran over it, then backed it up and ran over it again. I'm not a fan of the name. I wanted to change. I don't know what it can change to if not the old name, but um the uniforms are a nice compromise. Everything else I'm just not really a fan of.
My preference would have been Red Wolves originally out
Yes.
of all the alternate names I heard years ago. For some reason, maybe it's just the word red that they really wanted to get away from. So, whatever. If we're going to stick with Roman themes, I'm actually okay with that. That can have some good flavor and color to it. But, the word commanders is just dumb. We got to quit
Yeah.
doing this crap, y'all. Like, at least give me centurions or legionnaires or something more Roman specific. There were lots of things, and not all of them were good, by the way. Listen, there's no country, no nation, no group anywhere who's got a nice history. All of us have some very muddy histories, okay? Some of us very black histories, dark histories, but some of us just muddy. All of us do. So even if you go with Roman themes, right? There were some not good things that happened during the days of Roman
Right.
Roman direction. And those of you that know your history know that. So, but listen, still, we like the color, the idea of it, and there were lots of identifying markers, symbols that could have been used from that Roman time if we're going to go with it. So it this direction is better than nothing. You know, I would take it over nothing, but we'll keep working on it.
Yeah. The uniforms are the only thing that can change that I care about really. Um, and I'm convinced at this point the uniforms are changing. I don't
Okay.
think you do that. You soft launch that logo. I don't think you do the throwback uniforms of that you did last year if the uniforms aren't changing. And if you don't want to believe me, then believe numbers and what the team does. So this is from Fanatics today. Just took a screenshot of this before we started recording. And
Yep.
if you don't believe the screenshot, go look yourself. All the home and away Commander jerseys are severely, not just a little discounted, not just on sale, limited time offer. They are trying to get rid of these things.
Yes.
They are trying to offload these suckers like it's free candy. When have you ever seen a Jaden Daniels jersey go for $60, officially licensed product? Okay.
Right.
When officially licensed Jaden Daniels jersey of throwback, the throwback jersey is full price. This isn't it is happening. It's not a question anymore. It is going to happen. And when they announce it, those jerseys are probably going to sell out again. And I'm all for it. Are they going to be exact same ones? Probably not. There's probably going to be some variation to it, I would imagine. But they're getting rid of thank God Almighty, they're getting rid of those jerseys on the left there. Oh my God. The burgundy, they're not even burgundy. The red ones there and the white away jerseys, I cannot wait for those to be gone and for us never see them again. I can't stand them. Um, so that this is the happiest time right now is to get rid of those crap looking things and to replace them hopefully with the ones on the right.
I hope so. We'll see. Think we're heading and I think we're heading back to some direction that you and I like better. I don't think you and I and the fan base as a whole is ever going to like what we are going to be handed as far as falling in love with it. But if it at least has a direction, it at least is something closer to what we like in terms of how it looks, then I am thankful that they're at least working back towards that direction.
And to those that, I mean, because we're complaining about it in a way, but if the option from the owner's perspective, it's like, okay, you get this, or we just rip the Band-Aid completely off and
Yeah,
we do a total rebrand,
right.
different color scheme, different total new direction, right?
Yeah,
And it's not burgundy and gold, and it has nothing to do with the past. It's not honoring the past at all. It's just a brand new. It's like basically like it felt like a few years ago when the rebrand happened. We're on the 4 year anniversary of that. Of it's like an expansion team. It's not your team anymore.
right.
You know, so if those are the two options, I'll take this.
Yes,
But like, be careful what you wish for. If you don't, I was like, oh no, no, I'll do anything but this. It's like really anything but this.
right.
Because they could really. I mean, it it would be expensive. It's going to be expensive for them either way. So there's like, well, let's really do it up. You know. So
Yeah, agreed. So I'll take Roman themed and just let's sharpen up those logos a whole lot better and let's make sure at least the colors start to look really like what we have historically seen, something closer to the good colors.
yes, make it actual burgundy,
Yes.
like they used to be.
Yes.
All right, good. Because you can't tell me that this right here and that right there are the same. You cannot convince me. They're just not. They're
It
not.
doesn't look like it to me, man. I'm telling you.
All right. So the meat and the potatoes of the episode here. So we went over wide receiver prospects for the upcoming draft last week, right, Ben?
Yes, we did.
Yes. So we also talked about the new DC hire. So again, make sure after this video you go check out that one to see our opinions on the upcoming receivers. Because look, we're going to talk about this later. If there's no defensive players available that we like at 7, there's going to be 2 or 3 receivers that are sitting there at 7 that you could potentially justify for taking there.
Right.
And even if you trade back, because everyone's like, oh, well, just trade back then. It's like, there's no guarantee that a receiver's not going to be at the top of your board when you trade back, unless you go to the way back at the end of the first round. If you're
Right.
trading back in between that 10 to 15 range, it's highly possible that a receiver is still going to be at the top of your board there. So make sure you go check out that video after this one's done. The free agent receiver class for this year, it's not bad. It's not great though. There's not a lot of top end uh, talent on here. Um, Mike Evans, notwithstanding, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame receiver, but I don't know that he's going to be leaving Tampa Bay unless it's just they're way far apart on numbers. He's been there his whole career. He's going to be, I mean, without injuries, if he hadn't got injured this year, he'd still have that streak of 1,000-yard seasons.
It would. Yes.
Um, so I'm not even considering him in the calculus of this because I don't think he's leaving. George Pickens, I doubt he's leaving either. Um, unless again, Dallas and him are way far apart on numbers, which is entirely possible. Who knows with George Pickens, right? Um, but I would doubt that he'd be coming here. So I'm not those 2 receivers. I'm not really considering the calculus of this situation here. Now, are there names on this list that I like? Yes. I don't love any names on the list. Um, it- I guess number one, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this list here, are you in favor of bringing Deebo Samuel back?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it, but if I had a vote, I would probably vote against it, about 60% against it. So I understand if we do. I don't mind if we do. If they do it, I'm like, okay. But all things considered, for several reasons, I think if I had the vote, I would vote about 60% against it at this point.
Does it matter if the number is different? So I don't think he had a bad season.
Right.
But I
Agreed.
also don't think that he's going to come back here for less than what he made last year, which was, according to this, about 17 and a half, which his cap hit was a little over 19, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but I don't think he's coming back for less than 17 and a half.
See, I think that would probably be right. At his age, he did produce last year. I do figure he's not going to want to come back here. He'd rather just test the market and come back here for less than that.
Right. Um, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. If you bring him back, fine. Um, if you don't bring him back, I'm also fine with that. It's not that he was a bad receiver. It's just I don't consider him a true number 2 receiver. He's definitely not a number 1 receiver. I don't consider him in that role. He's not he doesn't have a defined position, right? He's in the backfield, he's constantly in motion. Um, you know, is he one of these route runners that's like he's just a pristine route runner? I don't think so. He's physically imposing. He still has a good bit of speed at his age and given all the injuries. Um, but he's more of like a weapon X type of player on an offense. He's not a defined receiver. Not that he's a bad receiver, he's not. I just don't think he's that top tier number 2 or even number 1 receiver. I just don't think he is that. So could we do a lot worse than Deebo Samuel? Samuel, certainly, but I'm not willing to pay top dollar for him. That being said, I have 3 names specifically if you're looking for a true number 2 receiver to as a running mate for Terry. I have 3 names on this list. Um, then they're probably going to be expensive because they're relatively young. So Alec Pierce, he's my number 1 guy. I loved him coming out of Cincinnati. Uh, and I think that because of the quarterback situation in Indianapolis, I think he's been underutilized and just hasn't had the opportunities, much like Terry McLaurin the first several years that he was here with us. He just
Yep.
didn't produce because of the quarterback situation. So he's my number 1 choice there. Would he be priced out of our range if there's a bidding war for him? Probably. But if we can get him, I want us to hop on that early and lock that in if we can. Number 2 for me, I gotta find it on the list here. I've had a lot of Jawan Jennings. So he's had really good moments, and he's put together a couple of good seasons in San Francisco. I don't know that he leaves San Francisco, but my thought is depending on depending on the Brandon Ayuk situation, and how much cap they're gonna have to eat for that. Are they going to pay, Brandon Ayuk and Jawan
Right.
Jennings basically a large cap number? I don't know about that.
Right.
Um, I think he would be a really good number two for Terry, and there's obviously that San Francisco connection with him and Adam Peters. So he would be my second option here. My third option would be a guy like Christian Kirk. Now, is he a number two receiver? Is he a number three receiver? We can debate that, but what he is he's a reliable target, and he has been for the past how many years that he's been in the NFL. He doesn't excite me, but he's a reliable, steady receiver on the other side of Terry, which is something that Terry has not had. Um, so those are my top three names on this list. There's obviously other names on here that I would be interested in, just not as the defined number two receiver. If you want to bring them in just, to be in the mix, perfectly fine with that. But as a true number two, those are the top three names I got.
I agree with you. I'll mention a couple of other names later on in a few minutes that we could be interested in, but I'm with you. I like those three guys. Now, people who have heard me over the past, I don't know, I've been doing this for 8 years now, I guess. People have heard me preach for a very long time, and I haven't really backed off of it. The idea that I'm not interested in paying for overpriced free agents who can't really deliver, top end production and results. But the market has changed the past 2 or 3 seasons now. The free agent classes are worse and offer fewer options than they've ever offered before. Teams are willing to go deep in the dead cap space to keep a lot of their players. They're willing to sign some of these guys early, even though some of them are very average. And they're willing to try to hang on to them and then just turn around and trade them. And in some cases, they just never hit free agency, right? So, with that in mind, you don't get as many good options in free agency. They are what they are. And you're actually going to pay more for them than you used to have to pay. So it's just I think it's a weird market right now. But with that in mind, if you need to upgrade your position group, whatever position group it is, you're just going to have to pick out the best option available and overpay for it. Now, again, with that in mind, I want those guys to be 25, 26, 27. And I want them to have already proven something, not be, a guy we hope turns out. So that's why I like your three guys. I mean, I really do. Alec Pierce right there. What is he, 25 going on 26?
Hmm.
And he's shown he can produce. Absolutely. So I think that is the number one option. I really totally agree. Your next option was where am I looking at here?
Juwan
Who would you
Jennings.
Juwan Jennings, yeah, totally agree. He's shown that he can produce, and he is 28 and a half, be going on 29. So again, it's a little bit older, but we're not sitting right there at the 30 mark. And also combined with that, he hasn't played a ton of NFL seasons yet. Statistically, the drop off tends to happen in season 9 on average, not season 5 or 6 for these higher end guys. So I'm okay with that one. And then Christian Kirk, yeah, I don't think he can really touch what the other two guys do in terms of talent and size, measurables, but the production is there. You're exactly right. He's shown he can produce, and that sure as heck would upgrade our receiving room. So I personally would be looking at all three of these guys, and George Pickens scares me to death because of the issues, the personality conflicts, especially bringing that into Washington. But he's so good, and there's so few options. I'd think about him, but he wouldn't be in my top three. I like your top three. Okay, so I'd be looking at these three guys, and I know I'm going to overpay, but that's part of life. It's what I'm being dealt with right here. I don't have lots of first and second round picks and third round picks to fill out my roster. I gotta do something, right? So let's grab one of these wide receivers, get the production they offer, a little bit of an overpay, and then hopefully in the draft we can pick up somebody somewhere along the way as well. I'm with you.
Okay, so let's just play devil's advocate here. So
Yeah.
you throw all the money you want at any one of these three guys, at
Right.
least money that makes sense without getting absolutely nuts and crazy, right?
Yes.
And they just decide, Jawan Jennings, he re-signs to San Francisco. Pierce, he's like, I can be kind of a pseudo number one on a worse team. He said, and I'll take that number one wide receiver money. And then Christian Kirk, he just goes back to Houston because, or for whatever reason they're not available, or they just don't want to come here, because maybe they're just like, 5-12, that scares me. Like I like Jaden, but like David Blau, he's a new offensive coordinator. Like, am I gonna get the ball at all? Like, these
Yeah.
are all things that are gonna play into the calculation of a lot of these guys. So if those three guys are not available, then where do you turn to?
Well, I mean, next up it would have to be George Pickens, and boy, dang it, I do not really want to bring him into this environment. But the talent is there. It's obvious if you surround him with some good players, he can really produce. So, and that was my view on him coming out of the draft from Georgia. I was like, man, I really think this guy can produce, but boy, there's some red flags too. And none of that has changed over his NFL career. So, man, if you're out of all other options, what do you do, right? So I'd go to Pickens next. Now let's put Pickens aside for just a second here. For my money here, at that point, once we're past those four players, we're either working with guys over 30, which I really, really don't want to do. I really don't want to do that. Or I'm starting to look at niche guys. So I
Yep.
may be able to add a slot receiver, or I may be able to add a deep vertical threat who's only good for 30 or 35 catches a season. Those are third options. Or that can be your tooth. And man, dang it, after that, it's like, yeah, I can add to my room. I'm not sure I've really upgraded it, but I may have to do that.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. You either, because I'm sitting here looking at the list, it's like, okay, you offer a 1 year deal to guys like Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, uh, even a Juju, um, because like they're steady guys. They have talent. They can produce. Their best days are behind them, but it kind of kicks the can down the road to next season. But unfortunately, based on Terry's deal, he only has basically this year left, and then an astronomical number in his last year. So either they rework the deal after this season, or we move on from him, which I can't imagine that happening, but things happen. It's the NFL, it's a business. Um,
Right.
so if you kick the can down the road another year, then you're gonna have to replace two receivers.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal either. So if that's not the ideal situation, which it's not, then you go to, as you said, the niche guys. So that's a Hollywood Brown. That's a Wandale Robinson who does have upside to be something better. Just injuries have not been kind to him, and again, a fluid quarterback situation in New York has not been kind to him either. I would be interested in him. Maybe not on a 4 or 5 year deal, but if we gave him like a 3 year deal, first, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years are somewhat guaranteed. I'm fine with that. Um, if we look at who is another speedster on here,
Rashid
um,
Shaheed.
yeah, Rashid Shaheed,
Yeah.
just the Tutu Atwell, like these guys that are just those niche stretch the field. I'm fine even if you wanted to bring Jahan Dotson back on a 1 year deal or a 2 year deal or something like that. Just
Right.
as I'm not talking as your number two receiver, just like, what, this guy can stretch the field. Jalen Lane, he's still working his way through receiver, but I'm fine with speed to burn. I don't subscribe to the Mike McDaniel philosophy necessarily,
Right.
but you can't teach speed, right? So if you're trying to make this offense more dynamic, and so forth, then I'm fine with that. De'Ami Brown, him and Jaden had a good connection at the end of 2024. So
Yeah.
if the money makes sense, not a 10 year or ten million annual average, but if the money makes sense there, I'd be fine with a 1 year reunion of that. So if you can get these niche guys in here that aren't going to be too expensive, I would maybe slightly overpay for a guy like Wandale Robinson if they have like, hey, this is going to be our our guy moving forward. We like him. I'm okay with that. I don't love it, but I'm okay with that. Just taking a chance on him because he does have talent. He's very dynamic, but he just hasn't stayed healthy, and it's New York. But that's kind of your, unfortunately, your options here. It's you get one of those top three guys that we talked about, and then your next best option is to get one of these niche guys to just complement Terry. And again, it's going to be by committee, with Luke McCaffrey, with Jalen Lane, with one of these niche guys, and then hopefully a draft pick, somewhere mixed in there. So again, it's just Terry and then everybody else again.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I don't think there's a perfect one based on our situation this year. And obviously, we're only talking wide receiver. By the time you start calculating in everything else, you really are into a lot of calculus and based kind of theories here. So, but again, just to reset exactly what you said, we've got our top three guys. Maybe if he's available and if you want to run that risk, George Pickens would be the fourth. After that, though, you either have to get an old guy, which I don't want to do, or you get a niche guy. And, that's it. My preferred scenario is that we pick one or two of these top three guys and we make a real run at them. I'm okay with a small bidding war because we need a guy, whether it's Alec Pierce or whether it's I don't man, I can remember Christian Kirk easy. I can't remember your second.
Juwan Jennings, yeah.
Yeah, so Juwan Jennings and Alec Pierce make a run at one of those guys, a legit run. At the very earliest, you can contact them and their agent, start having real talks, not just feelers. You need to be aggressive here. You can't just put out little feelers and hope it works out. Get aggressive with those two players. You get one, and then the other guy you're not going to pay the money to. So you pay one of these guys, and then you also grab one of the niche guys off this list at a much cheaper deal, 1 or 2 deal, 2-year deal. And then hopefully in the draft, you can add a wide receiver. But if that doesn't happen, oh well, in this particular offseason, right? The worst case scenario is that you just kind of play around with everybody. You just kind of talk to a bunch of people. You don't get aggressive. You don't have a plan A, B, and C here in this wide receiver market. And then you get nobody. And then you overpay for wide receiver 3 or 4 and you have an overpaid committee room, and then you don't even address it in draft, it could fall apart on you real quick. So hopefully they get their targets lined up, they get aggressive, they get 2 free agents here, and hopefully a draft pick to add to it.
That is the ideal scenario. Again, if you could add an Alec Pierce and then a guy like Tutu Atwell, or even
Right.
bringing back De'Ami Brown,
Yes.
just as a deep vertical threat,
Mhm.
uh, I'm more than okay with that.
Right.
I would in fact be very happy with that. Um, because again, I don't want to be a couple injuries in the wide receiver room, and then we're toast, right? Like I'm
Yes.
fine with Luke, and Jalen Lane. I'm fine with them. Like I'm not looking for Luke McCaffrey to get cut. I'm not looking for Jalen Lane to get cut. They're both very valuable, especially on special teams. They're very valuable. But I think Luke made some strides last year.
Yes.
Um, as the season went on, he just unfortunately he got injured. So, but going into the season with him as your number two, or even your number three for that matter, is probably not very wise. But they know more about him in the building than we do. So, uh, if they want to do that, that's fine. But you're just running the risk again of we need as many good players as possible, if not great players. And if he's not one of them, then I don't want him getting tons of playing time.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And I know it's not easy. We're not going to fix everything this offseason because we're just looking at wide receiver. And you and I have already talked at length for weeks and months about the defense needing upgrades, which we will do and are in favor of. But the wide receiver room needs it too. And I really would prefer, and part of the reason that I'm not in favor of paying Samuel is that we already have another older receiver on the roster who's kind of carrying, the production load. So I don't want two of those guys on the roster at this point, showing the age and trying to carry the load and then having to replace both of them in an off season or two. So let's go ahead and stagger these ages a little bit. I'd feel a lot better about that. Which, by the way, Alec Pierce, Juwan Jennings, you're dealing with guys that are a little bit younger, especially with Pierce.
Yeah, and so and we might as well just talk about this because we're getting ready to do a mock draft anyway. Other than like an Alec Pierce, um, I I still wouldn't be upset if we got a receiver and we drafted him high, you know?
Right.
It's not ideal, obviously, but I'd be fine like if because we're getting ready to talk about receivers here at seven. Like we're that's going to be um a discussion, right? Um so I mean, does if you get a Jawan Jennings, are you still fine with drafting someone at seven?
Yes, but that's under the assumption that the defensive guys we wanted aren't there. The deeper we get into this draft prep, the more convinced I am that there's probably going to be one guy sitting at seven that we really like on defense and can take. But yes, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, either one of them is good enough to consider at seven in this draft based on our needs. So I'm open to that. My preference is still, though, to grab that defensive player. If it's a Reuben Bain, if it's a Caleb Downs, a couple other guys I'd be interested in too if they were to be sitting there.
Okay, I'm getting the draft up here. Give me 1 second. All right. So got this up here, starting the draft, start round one. All right. So obviously this is taking a second. Well, this is already way off. The Raiders not taking Fernando Mendoza. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So
But he did go.
he did go, but he didn't go to so obviously, but he went. So Makai Lemon going number five. Okay. All right. Well, this is an interesting draft already. Arvo Reese is there at seven. Um, okay. This is interesting. Does this not have a way to trade picks, I'm assuming? Oh, I have to upgrade. That's great. Um, not doing that. So if we stay, let's just
Yeah,
pick
sorry
stay at
about that.
seven then. No, it's okay. Let's just stay at seven then. Um, obviously Arvell Reese is probably definitely in consideration there. Potentially Falk. I know uh crap, what's his name? Bailey. He's definitely gonna be in consideration here. Uh but then you got Carnell Tate there. If those guys aren't there, then maybe he's an option. Um, but is there anyone that you want to take a deeper look at here?
So I'd be happy drafting Reese, Falk, Downs, Tyson Tate, those five guys right here at number seven. I would be satisfied. And David Bailey too. None of them answers all of our needs or maybe even fully fulfills the need we have at that position, to be honest. They've all got limitations or flaws, but those five guys are very much worth taking right there. If that's the way it were to happen, I would understand it. Ultimately, I still want to trade back here. It looks like we're not going to be able to do it on this mock. We may do another mock on a different board here, but yeah, I'm fine with these five players and Bailey.
So do you think since Brian Flores, or Durante Jones is, from the Brian Flores system,
Yes.
more or less, does he prefer a Caleb Downs here?
See, Caleb Downs helps a lot. And it's not that he does all that crazy blitzing stuff or blows up running backs, but still, if you have one guy that controls that middle square from passing aspects, passing lanes, and then also from being able to come down and smother the run, it allows for the rest of your defenders to do all that crazy Brian Flores stuff, which is aggressive. It's drop down, it's drop back, it's disguise. So, yes, Caleb Downs would allow for all of the other guys to do that.
So who is your preference at this point, knowing what we need, knowing the coaching staff? knowing who's available right now, who's your pick?
Honestly, it's probably going to be David Bailey. And the funny thing is, if he were in an average draft, right? Just say any draft from any season, just I've got a late first round grade on him, and I don't think he's a three down player. I think he's a minus against the run, but he is so good at one thing, and that's getting to the quarterback, you know? So if I were going to make a pick here, I don't know that I would do this. I would probably work my best to trade back if I were the real general manager. But if we're going to stick and pick, and we want that kind of we want something special out of a top 10 pick. Bailey at least offers that explosive off the edge, get after the quarterback specialness that I think we see.
Is Reese the consideration here, given the needs at linebacker and more of these seen as a tweener type of, you
Yeah,
know,
see,
pass rusher linebacker?
that's the only thing that's holding me back here. But yeah, Reese is a real consideration. Reese has got the ideal NFL size. And while I don't think he's great in pass coverage, he certainly has the experience to float around in shallow zones. And he certainly has shown that he can get pressure off the edge, and he blows up the running game and he blows up screens. But he does have a little bit of that tweener to him, and it does make you hesitate, right? When you're making these picks, you're like, well, I'm picking top 10 here. Do I really want to go with a guy that might be a little bit in between positions? And somebody's going to do it, top 10. There's no doubt. And I don't mind if it's us, but with as many needs as we've got, it does make me hesitate at least.
All right, David Bailey, it is from Texas
I
Tech. All
actually
right.
think you should make the picks. Well, you already picked Bailey,
Well,
but
I already picked Bailey.
so,
The next one we do, depending on how fast this one goes, we see if we can get one with trades in there if it doesn't take too long. But
right.
um, man, Caleb Down, this must not be operating. Okay, about to say Caleb Downs is not going 19. That's not happening. Um, if it does, then I would trade next year's first to get back into the first round to get him. Um,
Yes. Agreed.
and if he falls that far, either someone didn't do their homework or everyone else is stupid.
One of the
Like,
things of using the mocks is that some of them set their randomizers more random than others.
yeah,
And some of us have talked about we wish, maybe me and you on air, I think, we wish they would put in controlled randomizers a little bit more so it's not quite so out of whack sometimes.
yeah, because there's going to be randomness. There's certainly going to be randomness. There's going to be head scratching picks. There's going to be guys that are taken way too early. There's going to be guys that are taken way too late.
Right.
So it's just part of the draft. But I mean, this up top here, where Fernando Mendoza is not the number one pick.
Right.
Um, if he's not, he would probably try to go back to Indiana in some form or fashion if he has to be a New York Jet. Um, man,
Yes.
I would the the entire sports world would have a funeral for him, for his hopes and dreams. Because man, that's just rough. That's rough.
Dante Moore already took a lot of money in order to avoid the New York Jets. So, yes, I would agree. By the way, it's taken a long time to get to our next pick. We're almost there, but
Yeah.
it is a reminder of how many picks currently sit between our seventh pick and our next pick, which is at 71. It's a lot.
So some very interesting names um on the board here because we have DDS, who we've talked about
Yeah.
previously in previous mock drafts, who, based on what you've said, what you've had me watch, I
Yes.
really like DDS.
Okay.
Okay. Me and you both anticipate him probably being gone at this point
I
in the
would think
draft.
so. Yes.
Um, but then you have Will Lee here. We've talked about him before,
Yes.
as a corner option. We haven't really talked about Demani Jackson, really. I don't think you're not his biggest fan though, right?
Not to this degree. No, I would rather get him the next round, probably.
And then we have Thieneman up here, which we've talked about him. We have not talked about Max Clear. So I don't want to pick a tight end here. Obviously, I want to continue addressing defense. I want to stay on that
Right.
on that on that role here. However, is tight end a consideration here? Zach Ertz probably not return. Even if we re-signed him, I mean, he had a horrible knee injury at the end of the season. He's not going to be back even for the first half of at least the first half of the season, if not
Let's talk
longer.
Max Clare and the tight end position real quick, and then let's go to your defensive position group of preference and make a pick off of that just for tonight's stuff.
Sure.
Max Clare is a good tight end and very flexible. Really not your close to what they would call inline, really not your inline blocking tight end. He's not going to do much of that. It's not that he can't, it's just not his game. He's really more of your slot tight end kind of a guy and fairly flexible. So if you're looking for guys that can make a difference in the passing game, if in theory we couldn't get the wide receiver free agent we want or the wide receiver draft pick we want, tight end still helps that, right? In the pass catching. So yeah, I'd be open to this, and Max Clare would be one of, I think, two or three tight ends that I would be interested in, this high up in the draft. So a viable option for sure.
So sticking with defense here, that's my preference.
Yes.
Unless the cupboard is completely barren on offense, that we just
Right.
haven't addressed it at all at this point. So we've talked about Thieneman. Me and you both really like him. There's Ramsey from USC there, and then there's guys like you like Will Lee, like DDS. Who is your preference at this point?
I don't want to beat dead horses. So if you don't mind, we've already got an edge. Click on either defensive line or corner or maybe linebacker. And let's just see what's sitting at the top right there.
Yeah,
So
so your guy Orange is not there
he's
from
not there. Okay.
yeah, he's not there.
Let's stick with that. Dante Corleone would be a good consolation prize. Doesn't quite do what Dominic Orange can, but it's in the same vein, the same mold, the same idea. You're looking at a very big defensive tackle who's been doing it for a while and is going to hold up very well against the run, should be able to control one gap for sure, and at times two gaps. So this guy can really, motor down and control that run game to a degree, but just not a superstar in the making, right? That, in theory, it would allow you to save a lot of money at defensive tackle. So a good working class defensive tackle, mostly run focused.
So there seems to be a kind of a cluster here of linebackers. Are any of these guys excite you?
Well, okay, I will speak for other people. Jacob Rodriguez down there from Texas Tech excites a lot of people. Really smart player, made a bajillion tackles for Texas Tech this past season. I personally think he's a little small and a little slow based on the tape I watched. I really wouldn't want him at 71. I'd want him farther down the draft line. But to be fair, a lot of legit people really like him. Jake Golday is a guy that I heard PFF attached to us a couple of weeks ago. Very flexible. You talk about a guy that can do a lot of different things: athletic, physical, pass cover, run defense. Very flexible. That would be a guy that would really, I think, fill out. I think he would immediately fill out a starting spot at linebacker based on what we currently have at linebacker.
All right, and then let's just take one last look at these potential corners here. Outside of Willie, I know you like him. Are any of these other guys day one starters?
I'll mention Chandler Rivers. Rivers is not particularly tall, which can be a problem, but he does seem to have long arms and a vertical jump to make up for that. So you talk about a guy who seems like he's got the intellect of a safety where he could kind of captain a little bit, but he would hold up in off man coverage and in zone coverage. Occasional press man. He's not going to lock too many people down. You could bump him to slot at times. That really is not where he needs to be. And you could float him out to safety at times, but that's not where he needs to be. He really needs to be an outside corner. Will Lee's probably closer to your ideal cover guy if we're going to try to grab a legit cover guy here, kind of more of a one-on-one type.
So you want to get was Bailey Texas Tech or Texas A&M? He was Texas Tech, wasn't
Yeah, Baylor was Texas Tech.
he? Yeah. We can get both Texas guys, or we can go back to edge. We get DDS. We can go back to your defensive lineman with Corleone. Where are you wanting to go?
If you don't mind, let's drift to edge, and I'll throw out another name here. Akeem Mesidor. is a guy that is moving up draft boards, and I think rightfully so. Currently, I think I have him 45 or 50, but I'm just waiting until I can get my turn to do my deep dive on him, and I'm probably going to thrust him up into the top 40. So if he were here, this is a much bigger edge and nowhere near as quick as David Bailey. But this guy looks like a starting caliber defensive end to me, edge slash defensive end in the NFL. And he looks like he does not hold up against the run as well as deny Dennis Sutton, but he's probably got more pass rush pressure in him. So I expect him to move on up. That would be another name I would throw out there. So probably for me at this point, Mesidor, just get different names in the night, right? Mesidor or Will Lee from Texas A&M.
I like doubling up on edges. You know that. Even if we
Yes.
bring back guys like Von Miller and Jacob Martin, we need two starters.
Yes.
Um, Armstrong and the rest of them, they're great in the rotation. We're sticking with edge. Need two starters on there. Um, and again, because it's going to take us a while to get to fifth round, pick seven. Um, we did this last week too, but I don't mind this. I prefer this. The problem is we need two starting edge rushers.
Yes.
We need a starting corner. We need
Yes.
basically two starting safeties. I'm
Yes.
not content with Will Harris as a starting safety. He might be a fine
Right.
safety, that's fine. I'm not content. We need a starting linebacker.
Yes.
We need preferably another rotational defensive tackle. If because the Johnny Newton project, I don't know.
Yes.
This to me, this is last year for that one, right? So what is
Yeah.
that? Six, seven,
Seven.
new starters on the defensive side of the football. That's just the defensive side of the football.
Yes.
Okay, we have what? How many picks we have? We have one, two, three, four, five. We have six picks. I mean, if you drafted all defense, that still doesn't solve all the problems.
No, it doesn't. Yes. We have some holes here. We're going to address them, right? Not all in the draft, half in free agency, what's left in the draft. And you're going to have to not upgrade, you're going to have to develop some of these other guys that are still on the roster, whoever ends up staying this year. That's your mix. But yeah, there's more holes than we got glue to fix them.
All right, so these are guys that I'm not as familiar with, obviously. So we got Le'Veon Moss. I know you've talked about him before. I think last maybe on air, off air. I can't remember. I know you've mentioned it before. You like him out of Texas A&M. I know you've talked about Zane Durant before. Um, that you like him. I don't know about these other guys though. I don't know where you want to target either.
Let's go. I've got a name already, but it's not a position of need at all. So let's go position shopping. Take me to your top position at this point that you'd love to at least see what's there.
I gotta look at corners, man. I mean, we need somebody, right?
Yeah, the name here, I mentioned this a week or two ago. Hezekiah Massis to me
Yep.
looks like a solid future corner. He won't start probably in the first, he wouldn't start most of the first season. He might catch on and start late in the first season. But Hezekiah Massis out of California looks like to me a pretty solid guy.
All right. Any safeties here that excite you?
Not at this point. They are all decent, but nobody that excites me at this point.
All right. I'm gonna jump to center here. Now I know you and Simon are big offensive line guys, so maybe you
Yes.
do. Maybe you know some of these guys. Maybe you don't. Am of the opinion that I'm not considering it a top priority given everything that we need, but we need
Yes.
some depth on the offensive line, especially at center. We have no backup center right now.
I actually drafted Bryce Foster for us in one of my personal mocks, just doing the off-air work. But which we're in the fifth round now. But there's a name here, and it's not a position of need. But check out offensive tackle. I think it is. See where they actually put him here. No, let's check out guard. Actually,
They they don't have. Oh, there it is.
yeah, they
Let's say
bumped it
so,
at
but
the end. So There's actually two offensive linemen. I feel like most two of these offensive linemen I'm looking at are not going to be here. So Monroe Freeling back in the tackle class from Georgia is probably going to be long gone. But just sticking right here at guard, Keelan Rutledge is a very large man. Okay. Uh, Seasons ago. And so does his attitude and his mindset. Very aggressive, very mean, very rough on the field. I mean, you talk about a violent guy. The run blocking is very good. The pass blocking leaves some things to be desired. Word is at the Senior Bowl that during practices, they actually had to have him back off a little bit because he was just kind of disrupting the drills and the one-on-one stuff a little bit too much while they were trying to get some things done. But
I
anyway,
like that. I like that.
yeah, so if you're looking to establish some attitude and some run blocking and some size, Keelan Rutledge is the guy.
See, I'm fine with that because I do want to bring Chris Paul back. I want to bring, I think he deserves that. I think he's earned it to be brought back on, 1 2 year deal, kind of a prove it deal, see if this past season was legit. Um, but I don't want him to be the solution going in. I don't want him just hand him the day one starter job. So granted, it's a fifth round selection. I want some competition in there,
Right.
and if nothing else, it's depth along the offensive line, which you can't get enough of. I think we did a decent job of that last year, but that doesn't mean we go a year with ignoring it.
Agreed. This will be my preference. Him or Mass is probably the corner from California. And in addition to that, drafting positions when you don't need them allows you to start setting up younger pipelines, which allows you to save money. Uh, the Chiefs and the Patriots both have done this for a long time.
Eagles.
When you already have a pretty good roster, you can start Eagles, yes, you can start drafting ahead. And while you don't want to let go of certain good players, it certainly softens that blow because you've already got a guy that at least can step in and play for a whole lot less money. And that money can go where you really need it, not on player number 13 on the roster, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I said Philadelphia just as recent examples because we've had a lot of their
Yes.
second stringers get starting jobs elsewhere and they do pretty well and they're getting paid a lot of money and they didn't really play that much their rookie contract. So, or as rotational guys. So I'm a-okay. If you want to go Keelan Rutledge here, I am. It's not again my top choice, but if
Yes.
he's the best player on your board and he is going to eventually fill a need, whether it's now or a year or two down the line, I'm all for that.
The funny thing is, I actually think he could start for some NFL teams next year because they have really bad offensive lines. So he could not at tackle, right? That was one of the things about Penning was a lot of us, myself included, looked at him as being a a franchise building block at tackle. And I guess looking back, the expectations were just too high. But with Rutledge, we're just asking him to step in and be a mean power blocking run guy and hopefully learn some pass blocking. It's not awful, it's not great. And we're catching him down here, not in the first round, but here in the fifth round. So that's a huge difference. And I think that's a smart thing to do, actually.
So we're going Rutledge.
That's my vote anyway.
Okay, you're the GM, sir. Um, so we've got two, unfortunately, 3 picks in 5 rounds. That's not great. So we
No,
got two edge guys and a guard. Um, I gotta be honest with you. If this plays out, I wouldn't be terribly upset, but I definitely would be like, man, we just did not. This just doesn't seem good. Like now, the
right.
caveat to this is if these guys actually pan out and end up being solid contributors, if not stars, at their respective positions. Winning and success changes everything, makes everything feel better, right? But going into, rookie camp and mini camp and then training camp with this is our young returns, I don't feel great about that, man. I really don't.
No, and nor should you, because that's yeah, I have no problem with the trades we tried to make. We made three trades over the past two or three off seasons, right? At the time, I'm totally fine with what we were trying to do. It does at this point leave us short on draft picks and leave us trying to figure out what to do at this point.
Okay, so at this point, at pick six in the sixth round, there seems to be a large cluster of tight ends and running backs, which well, we need kind of both of them. Um, we will have this discussion another time, just for time's sake. But depending on how you feel about Chris Rodriguez and Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt, running back could also be a priority for you. Um, So just throwing that out there. We haven't addressed receiver yet. We haven't addressed the secondary at all. I know me and you talked about potentially getting a backup quarterback in this draft because I doubt Mariota is going to be back. Um, there's many different ways that we can go here.
Yeah.
Was there a way that you potentially wanted to go?
Let's start position hunting. So you pick a group and we'll see if we spot a name that we really enjoy coming off of this.
We got three. We got three corners to choose from.
There's three guys left.
Three guys.
For a sixth round pick, Thaddeus Dixon is fine. Will not get me excited. Experienced guy. The measurables are okay.
Any these safeties, any of these five safeties that are left eligible to be
Five
drafted.
guys left. Nwankpa again should be selected in this draft, but would he ever really lock down a starting spot? Totally up, totally up for debate.
I'm all for grabbing a receiver here. I believe you talked about a couple of these guys previously, Cameron and Bell. I know. Any of these guys that excite you?
Two guys here. Cameron, we did talk about on the last mock draft you and I did. So that's a fine sixth round pick. Probably better than what you would normally find in a sixth round pick. Does Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss? Uh, that's a guy that could earn the three spot in theory and could produce something and give you some exciting plays, some big plays. So here for sixth round again, that's better I think than what you would normally find at wide receiver.
Of the guys available here at receiver, just because if we're not totally jazzed about the secondary options, hopefully we address that in free agency. Um, of these receiver options, who do you like the best?
I- If we're going to go for a little bit of ceiling and excitement, it would be Dejon Stribling out of Ole Miss. If we want somebody who we think is going to block and be physical and maybe someday be a solid starter, that would be more Cameron. But Stribling probably has a little bit higher ceiling here.
Is that your vote?
Yeah, I think Stribling. Did you check the tight ends before we
Yeah, let's
kick out
check
on,
them.
on this sixth round pick?
You have mentioned I don't it probably wasn't during our mock drafts on air, but you have mentioned Lance Mason in the past.
Lance Mason's certainly a guy that is worth a sixth round pick. I'd be fine with it, not excited. And then Jack Velling down there from Michigan State. Michigan's Jack Velling can do a decent job blocking as a blocking tight end. He's got the physicality. He just needs to develop the technique more. And then he's a good kind of an underneath uh, sit in zone pockets and catch nice little quarterback saving routes, basically. So, another not bad for a sixth or seventh pick.
So where are you wanting to go, sir?
Probably Stribling is probably the one, unless you just think we need to get somebody at cornerback with Thaddeus Dixon. Stribling probably offers the higher upside at wide receiver.
I like upside in the sixth round. At that point, it's a far cry that they're going to make the roster anyhow.
Yes.
So, after year one, year two. So I like upside because, if you hit big, or at least you get a solid contributor on your team for the next several seasons. So
Yes.
I'm going upside. All right, we got two picks left, and again, I am not totally impressed by the return that we're getting here.
Right.
It's just it's just lackluster.
It
That's what
is.
it. And again, David Bailey could end up being a 12 sack a year guy.
Right.
Messenger could end up being a really solid contributor, a starter even on the edge. But man, just it for 2026. it just doesn't scream, "Hey, we're back in this thing." It screams, "Man, we have to have these guys work." As opposed to trading back, we got more bites at the apple. Seeing who can work out and potentially fill more holes. But again, just kind of is what it is.
The way
Um,
tonight's draft is working out without making any trade, this would feel a little bit better if we had a year one coach
yeah,
and a year one GM, and we just knew we were dealing the cards we were working with the cards we were dealt, right? So it's, hey, let's make the best of it. But you're right, year three of a regime in which last year was rough, this is not the one that's going to inspire immediate hope.
yeah, this is the bed they've made. They got to lay in it now. So, um, Thaddeus Dixon is here. Um,
In favor of that, we can look anywhere you want, but man, we were already thinking about Dixon, a few picks ago, so he's still there.
yeah, Jack Vellin's still there.
Ellen's still there.
Yep, quarterbacks. We get Jalen Daniels.
Very possible, yes.
Very possible. So if you think that Thaddeus Dixon is a higher upside guy or Nwankpa, um, I secondary has to get addressed. So I'll leave it up to you on who you think is the better ad here. Again, 6th round pick, understand. So we need
Yes.
both. So whatever guy has best chance of contributing anyway.
That really probably would be Nwankpa. I think he should get drafted, but we did Nwankpa, I think, in our draft a week or two ago. So if you're wanting to mix it up and grab Thaddeus Dixon out of North Carolina, very, very close there on those two guys.
Yeah, let's do it. Thaddeus Dixon. Mix it up a little bit. We got one pick left. That 7th rounder, that's going to change everything.
That's the one.
That's the one, guys. That's the one. Let it while this is loading, let us know, in the comment if you're still here. Thank you for, tolerating a 7th round mock draft. And also let us know who you want us to pick. Like if you're just like, how could you have passed this guy up? How dare you? Um, like let us know. We got a kicker here. Oh my
Uh-oh.
goodness. We do need one of those. Believe it or not, wouldn't be the worst pick. We need one of those very badly, but unless he is by far and away far better than anything else available on as an undrafted free agent, I have a slight problem with spending draft picks on punters, kickers, and lawn snappers. I just don't really, again, unless there are generational type kickers, punters, and so forth, yeah,
Zavada's worth a pick. And I don't mind when people spend late round picks on special teamers because, again, the statistical odds on these sixth, seventh round draft picks of them ever doing anything at the NFL level, it really is very small. So I don't mind it, but I'm not going to argue for that at all in this case. We can either scroll positions or we can just start scrolling down the big board and seeing what we like here.
well, we need tight ends, we need running backs, we need interior defensive linemen, we need kickers, maybe a punter. If Tressway's not back, then we might need a punter. Backup quarterback. I mean, pretty much my thought at this point is best guy available. Um, so wherever you want to go to, um, I'm you can justify it any which way. Even another receiver or another edge guy, you can justify any selection here at this point.
The if you don't mind scrolling to linebacker, there's a name there. At this point, you're buying a lottery ticket, right? That's
Yeah.
all really we're doing. So there is a name here sitting right here, Kyle Lewis, linebacker out of Pittsburgh. He's a smaller sized linebacker, but he's a playmaking kind of a linebacker. So you can use him to get some pressure on the quarterback up the middle on an occasional blitz. He is fast enough to be effective in pass coverage in theory. And again, he's got to learn all the NFL systems and coverages, right? But he handled that job very well at Pittsburgh and stood out there at Pittsburgh. So if you don't mind the slightly undersized guy who fits more of the modern linebacker role, that is, he tends to be better in pass coverage than he does at stopping the run, that would be a pick that would at least give us a chance here. probably I really doubt he catches a starting role in his first season, but you would expect him to get more playing time in rotation than our current third and fourth best linebackers who really probably shouldn't be on the field much at all right now.
Yeah, again, I don't mind this at all. So we'll go ahead and select Lewis here. The the problem I have is you have now so we do this, right? And it's very plausible that we do this. Um, we do this, and then the problem is you have, assuming Bobby Wagner is not back, you have
Right.
Bobby Wagner, or not Bobby Wagner, you have Jordan McGee, unless we sign a free agent. We have Jordan McGee, Kane Madrano, who was a 6th round pick last year at UCLA, who we both liked. I really liked him coming out of UCLA. You got Ali Cahoe, who really came on during training camp last week, was kind of a special teams linebacker, but is he going to be a Mike linebacker, or even see the field for defensive snaps? Doubt it. And then you got you got Lewis here. So again, you have a bunch of late round guys, a fifth, sixth, and seventh rounder, and an undrafted guy. And I'm not saying we need three first round picks in the group there, but it's that just means that there's lack of talent in
Yes.
that group.
Yes.
And with a Flores defense, I don't think you can do that. Or Flores style of defense, I don't think you can do that. Or just any defense in general. You just can't ignore Mike linebacker. Uh, this regime really likes Jordan McGee. And we saw flashes. But I didn't see a guy that's an every down linebacker that can call plays, that can call out defenses, I didn't see that guy. Um, Now maybe we were just all so distraught from the entire season that we just weren't paying attention. We just didn't really care. I don't know, but I did not like what I see in terms of him being the mainstay at Mike linebacker.
Totally agree that, yeah, totally agree. And it gets back to the idea of, hey, we've got so many holes here, we're just not gonna be able to fix them all. So, and you say, well, go spend on free agency. Well, agreed, but you run out of money too at some point. So, I really think again, two-pronged approach here at linebacker. We draft somebody at linebacker, and but we would really need a good solid free agent linebacker to come in here and just fill a starting role, man. And we might be overpaying him. And I preached against NFL teams for so long for overpaying these guys. But when your roster is this depleted at certain spots, and when the free agent market has shriveled up over the years, I I, I understand we need to get somebody in here who can just fill out a starting role, even if he is overpaid.
Ben, do you have anything else? Any thoughts on this mock draft? Any other thoughts about anything else we talked about tonight? The receivers, the name, the logo, anything of that nature?
This mock draft really does kind of hit home a little bit of a depressing thought. So I'll just end with a bucket of cold water for everybody. It's what happens when you have a first pick, a third round pick, and then six, five, six, and sevens, right? So unless we trade out of that first rounder, this is about what we're looking at, and it's not exciting. It's just not. And it's that for the first half of the season either, in a season in which we're all looking to hit the ground running, right? So it does leave you in a bind.
All right. You want to tell the audience what you got going on the channel, what you're got in the pipeline?
I have a brilliant, scintillating video from last week that Robertson and I did that involved the Commanders as well, as it always does. We come up with one every week, involved the new defensive coordinator. It involved a rather lengthy discussion, but a good one about Daron Payne and defensive tackle. And then we also got into wide receiver draft prospects there as well on last week's show. And then we have a lot of draft things. So one by one, we're covering a lot of offensive draft players on this network. And then one by one each week, we're coming out with team mocks as well. So we've got a Raiders mock draft that comes out tomorrow at 2 p.m. Probably by the time you see this video, the Raiders mock will be out. So If you're a Raiders fan, or if you just want to see what else is out there from a draft standpoint, check that out as well. Thank you.
All right, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel here. Let us know in the comments what you thought about the mock draft that we just did, what you would change, who you would like us to target. Do you want us to trade back? Do you want us to stick at 7? I don't know that there's any wrong answers. It's just some answers are might end up turning out better than others. We don't know. We don't know
Yes.
till these guys hit the field. That's the crapshoot of the draft. So let us know in the comments, and we'll see you all next week. Don't know what we're doing next week yet, but we got it figured out. See you all next week.